and the Geek.
And welcome to Gleeman and the Geek, presented by Black Stag Brewing, now in a liquor store near you. Actually, it's not almost any store near you. I'm John Bonus of Twins Daily, and with me, Aaron Gleeman of The Athletic.
It's a fairly important week upcoming.
I was going to say, there's a chill in the air, Aaron Gleeman, and it feels a little like late season baseball is what it feels like. Games are a little bit more important. We've got a big series coming up.
You feel that in the air, John?
I do feel that in the air.
That's an interest. That might be a neurological thing for you.
I was walking around Wrigleyville yesterday afternoon, and somebody said, it's starting to feel a little bit like fall. And I thought, not just in terms of the weather, but also just in terms of the importance of the games and how much everyone seems to mean, and how every little injury or misstep seems to mean a little bit more.
That was almost poetic, John. It was like it attempted to be poetic. I'll give you credit for that. It was more poetic than I'll ever be.
Yeah.
It'd be better if you didn't have a heart attack at the end of it, cough up a lung, but there you are. Yes, they're back from Wrigleyville. John is also back from Wrigleyville.
Very much so.
You survived. You made it.
I made it.
The Twins themselves barely survived.
Yeah.
They lost Joe Ryan along the way. Byron Buxton also didn't play at all in the Cubs series. I feel like on the injury front, it's Friday morning, so I'm about to head over there after this for the doubleheader. So we don't have an update on Joe Ryan.
Right.
I'm assuming we'll get an update this morning once we're there, in 3 hours from now, let's say. But I don't know necessarily that that's true if he's still waiting on MRI results or whatever. We're going to find out Buxton's status, obviously, just based on if he's in the lineup or not for one or both of these two games. But between those two guys, and now the Correa situation, which, they initially...
We will probably also get an update on today.
I don't know that there is an update. That's the unfortunate part about it. We'll see if he's there. We'll go up and talk to him. But I feel like we're back to where we were 2-3 years ago on the injury front. Not in the sheer number of injuries, although we're slowly reaching that point, or quickly reaching that point, I should say. But in the kind of timeline murkiness that we started to get into prior to this current trainer, and I worry a little bit what that means that we're back to that point. Maybe it's just a couple of these injuries that have been particularly tricky.
Maybe
like Correa with plantar fasciitis, we know that's a particularly tricky injury in general, and maybe I'm reading too much into that. But injury updates have been harder to come by.
Yeah,
for the people like me who have been trying to get them, and when that starts to happen, I start to think about why. Then when Correa now is going to miss at least a month with an injury that he initially tried to downplay and tried to say he could play through. And I'm not blaming him or anything. Plantar fasciitis is a SOB. But not great. And we'll see with Buxton. Again, they're like, he came out precautionary reasons. He could have kept playing, misses the entire series.
Right.
I'm not saying that's anything bad on him. Your back hurts, your back hurts. That's how it is. Yeah. I'm personally, my back hurts also. I don't know why I'm going to this doubleheader.
You are not playing center field.
I'm not, no.
You are a healthy scratch for center field.
I'm playing a sit on your butt, and even that is a lot for me. But,
we've also got Paddock, right? We haven't heard anything about that.
No update on Paddock. Now, Joe Ryan, regardless of what today's update or tomorrow's update, whatever the next update on him is, he's going to miss some time. I mean, I think there's almost zero chance that he would skip one start and I think he's going on that.
Yes,
going on the IL.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
The question is just, is this a significant arm injury, or is this more of a muscle thing?
Right.
And you need 2 or 3 weeks off. If you need 2 or 3 weeks off, that's not great timing, obviously, given the matchups ahead and just the fact that there's 50 games left in the season. But that's a much different scenario than, there's damage, ligament damage or structural damage, as they like to say. So we'll see. I don't really want to speculate on that until we know. And even when we quote unquote know,
we'll see what we know.
We'll see what we know and don't know.
True. Yeah.
But, he wasn't going to pitch. Although my suggestion that they skip him Wednesday and have him pitch Friday.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Maybe that would have been better. Although maybe he would have just gotten hurt today. Who knows?
Maybe.
I always wonder about that. I don't know enough I don't think anybody really knows enough about how arm injuries work to say, was this going to happen on his next pitch, whether it was
I don't
Wednesday
think anybody will ever know.
Or Friday, or did this just happen to occur because of whatever conditions were when he was on the mound that day? But he wasn't going to pitch against Cleveland once he pitched Wednesday, obviously. So he'll miss, I'm assuming, at least 1 or 2 starts. That would be an optimistic case, but that'll be against the Royals. But that sets up this, huge series against Cleveland at Target Field, starting in 4 hours, 4.5 hours from right now as we speak. They got 2 today, 1 Saturday, 1 Sunday. They start the series 3.5 games back because, as ugly as it was for the Twins to lose 2 out of 3 at Wrigley Field,
Cleveland,
they got swept
those Diamondbacks really
at
came
home
through.
by the Diamondbacks, who are suddenly very, very hot. They're only a few games back of the Dodgers now in the AL West. So the Twins lost 2 out of 3 to the Cubs and gained ground in the AL Central. Mm-hmm. Now, you would have liked to take 2 out of 3 from the Cubs, and right now you'd have really gained some ground. Yes. But, they're in a position where you can't lose this series. I think realistically, if you lose this series, I'm not saying mathematically it's impossible, but if you were to go 1-3 in this series, I think your focus would shift if you're the Twins to the wild card probably at that point. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. That's more of a thing fans talk about.
Right.
It's not like they go, well, now that we're focused on the wild card, we're going to try to win fewer games or something. Right. You're just trying to win every game that's in front of you each day. But realistically, you're more looking at the wild card. If instead you split this series, or you would hope maybe go 3-1 in this series at home, then you've put some real pressure on Cleveland at that point, because Cleveland has lost 5 in a row heading into this series. Right. So both of these teams are just a mess right now. From an injury standpoint, both rotations are just dilapidated. You look at the Twins rotation, they're starting Louis Varland is coming up probably as the 27th man to start one of the games today.
Yeah,
the second game. It sounds like. I don't know that for certain, but it sounds like Bailey Oberoff start the first game. The Guardians also have a TBA,
yep.
And then Sundays is a TBA for them because they're hoping Tanner Bybee, who's been so good for them but has been injured, is going to, I think, throw like a bullpen session today to see if he can start Sunday. They also have Alex Cobb starting one of the games today, who's making his season debut after they acquired him from the Giants. He's been out all season with two different injuries. So you think the Twins, we often talk about this, like
both rotations are running on fumes, kind of.
This is a great example of, if you only pay attention to the Twins, you think, oh my God, the Twins have the worst injury luck. Their rotation's in shambles. Sure. They've lost Paddock. They've lost Joe Ryan. They got 3 rookies in the rotation essentially right now. But if you expand your scope and you even zoom out to the rest of the Central Division, let alone the other 29 teams, you see the Guardians' rotation is an absolute disaster too, and it's been similar to the Twins' rotation all season. Their bullpen has really carried them.
One difference is they did pick up somebody at the trade deadline to help plug some of these holes.
Yeah, he's making his season debut today.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to find out in about 5 hours if that's a good thing or a bad thing for Cleveland. I think it's very possible he just gets shelled or he's hurt. I mean, he's previously been a very good pitcher, Alex Cobb. He was an all-star last year. But I think that, again, that's all context. If the Twins had picked up Alex Cobb, people would be saying, really, their one move is to pick up a 37-year-old guy who's yet to pitch all season? What a Twins type of move. The Guardians make it, and we're like, oh, what if he comes off firing bullets and he's just... Anyway.
If only we had...
Yeah, it's interesting. 4 games in 3 days is obviously a unique situation.
I looked at this morning at Baseball Reference. The Twins' chances of winning the division right now, as of this morning, I was interested to see where it is today and where it is tomorrow and then where it is Monday, right? After 2 games, after 4 games, etc. Right now, it's at 18%.
That's a beer I just cracked.
That's right. 18%. This is Baseball Reference playoff. 18% chance of winning the division.
But they're like 80% to make the playoffs.
Yes, that is correct.
Which is sort of what I'm saying.
Right.
It's if you were to say split, I think you're still in okay shape because you did gain some ground when you were in Chicago. You win this series, and
I will be interested.
You're probably looking at, if you go 3-1 and you gain 2, so it's a 1.5 game lead. The problem is it's really a 2 game lead because Cleveland's going to have the tiebreaker.
Yep, that's right.
Almost regardless of what happens, the Twins would have to go 7-1 in their remaining 8 games against Cleveland
that's right.
to win the tiebreaker. But I think at that point you're probably 30 to 40% to win the
That's
division.
what I was wondering. It's
roughly.
like, I'm interested to see how much even like I said, a doubleheader sweep either direction today. Which way does that go? Like, do the Twins' odds go from 18% to 6 if they lose both of these games today?
Not that. It won't be that bad, but
Right.
yeah, something like that.
Right.
But, big picture, which is kind of what I was saying, like, the division is what you want, particularly because, well, one, we saw when you win the division last year, like the Twins did, you get the best of 3 at home, which is huge.
Yes.
As we saw.
Especially given Target Field and how crazy people were. Right.
And this year, if you win the Central, you're almost surely going to get a bye.
Right.
Because it's going to be the West is going to be worse than the Central this year. So that's huge. I mean, think of all of the first round series the Twins have lost in the last 20 years.
Sure.
You don't even have to play a first round series. Now you don't get credit for those wins.
No, that's right. You don't get two.
I did think about that last year. If they
would
would have somehow secured the number 2 seed last year, and they get a bye in the first round,
and then they end up facing Houston anyway,
and you get swept, the playoff losing streak somehow still lives on, even though you advance past the first round. Luckily, that didn't happen. Obviously,
that did happen to several teams last year, though.
That they lost. The first round.
That's right. Yeah.
I'll still take the bye.
Yeah, I will too.
Whatever your chances of winning the World Series are, not having the bye reduces those by like 40 to 50%.
Of course. Right.
That's just the pure math of it. Right. So I think, we mentioned this, but Correa is not going to be back for the series. Unclear when he will be back, which we can get into maybe more. Buxton is a question mark, certainly after missing the 3 games. I know that Baldelli kept saying, oh, well, he'll be in there, but they didn't think he was going to miss these 3 games. So we're in, believe it when you see it territory with all these injuries at this point. But the Joe Ryan thing is the one that it has 0 impact on this series.
Sure.
Which feels weird to talk about it ahead of this series, but it has the biggest impact, short of maybe Correa. But I think the assumption with Correa is he will be back at some point relatively soon. It's possible we don't see Joe Ryan again all season. Sure. But again, not worth.
It's also possible we do. Yeah, we just don't know. Right.
So we don't need to spend a ton of time, I guess, on the Cubs series. Just to recap the 3 games, I have 2 notes for each game that I thought were like the standout.
Okay.
Not even notes, but like the headline.
Okay.
First game, David Festa to me was the headline.
Yeah, I agree.
It was by far his best start, but it was also his 3rd consecutive, I would say, encouraging start.
Yep.
And they've gotten progressively better during that time. 9 strikeouts in 5 shutout innings. His changeup looked phenomenal. He was getting swings and misses with the slider and the changeup. The fastball velocity looked good. He threw strikes, got out of what little damage there was to get out of. I mean, he just looked good. I mean, it's funny, like, as I was watching that, it's amazing when your first 2 starts are bad, and that's all people have to go on.
Sure.
How much
the narrative changes given how much, even all the minor league success that you've had and the expectations and so on, your first 2 starts are.
Yes. I mean, it's a little bit of a lemon test, which I like to do with prospects in general. It's like, until this guy has some success, we can't assume he's going to have some success. Now he's had some success. That doesn't mean all of a sudden he's destined for 10 All-Star games or the Hall of Fame or anything like that. But there's at least proof of concept now, and that's not a shock. I mean, he's been the Twins' best pitching prospect since last year, and a top 100 prospect overall, and he's been pretty close to Major League ready for a while now. And also just from not even the numbers standpoint, which are very good in the minors.
Yes.
Just looking what he throws. I mean, he's 94 to 97 with the fastball. He's got a really good, tight, sharp slider and a changeup that is, seems to really be progressing and can be a weapon against lefties, which is always key for a right-handed starting pitcher. So I'm very enthused by the way he looked in that start.
We came out of that Monday night, and thinking they had 1 guy available on the bench, and that 1 guy was Vasquez. They had 3 guys out, Buxton and Brooks Lee, and who was the other one? I don't know. It was another one of their main guys, and they had Festa on the mound, which is their 5th guy.
Yeah.
And they ended up pulling out a win versus the Cubs at home. So I thought that's a pretty good start to that series.
Festa might be their 3rd guy now. We'll see.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah, right.
Second game, not as good. Imanaga really just baffled them. Other than Royce Lewis's 1 swing there on the 2-run homer.
Right. Yes, that's right.
I mean, he just had him absolutely befuddled.
Yeah.
Down in the zone, change up, was getting some borderline strike calls that really helped him, I thought. But that was a really good performance. And then Paredes homers off Lopez, and that's basically the game.
Yeah.
That was, I think, a 3-run homer down the left field line at Wrigley, who they had just traded for him at the trade deadline from Tampa Bay. And then, so that was the story of Game 2. And then Game 3, the story of Game 3 was Joe Ryan's injury.
Yes.
And what happened after became the story. But Joe Ryan, he's in the, second inning, throws like 3 pitches. Third inning. Yeah, he completed 2. You're right. First batter of the 3rd inning. Throws like 3 pitches, immediately points to the dugout, like to the trainer to come out.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh my God. Here
and starts kicking the mound.
Yeah, I mean, he's very upset. He didn't appear to be like in pain,
right?
Which is good. It's not like he grabbed at his elbow and fell to the ground or something like that, which we've certainly seen that at times before. He presumably didn't have to then watch Trevor Richards, which was nice because he was probably getting it looked at by the training staff in the back. But Trevor Richards comes in. Now, I'm going to give the before I say any of this, that's an extraordinarily difficult situation for a relief pitcher to come into.
Agreed.
When it's the 3rd inning of a reliable starting pitcher, you're not even thinking about coming into the game at that point.
Right.
You're an hour from like having to do your prep work to come into a game, whether physically, mentally, you're just kind of sitting there enjoying the day at that point. And then you get a call, and I know they get unlimited warm-ups when it comes to an injury. And I actually thought LaTroy Hawkins had some interesting thoughts on this on the broadcast because he was talking about situations where he said he was pitching for, I forget, for the Angels, I want to say, in the middle of his career when he was a reliever. He was a veteran reliever. Right. And he said, I had pitched 3 days in a row, so I was off. They had told me before the game, well, obviously you're not going to pitch. You've pitched 3 days in a row. Right. And he said whatever reliever was pitching the 6th or 7th inning, I think he said Scott Downs, got hurt like on the first pitch. And they called down to the bullpen. They're like, who can get ready in a hurry? And he's like, well, me, unfortunately.
Right.
Because he's got LaTroy Hawkins has one of the all-time rubber arms.
Right, that's right.
Pitched 22 years in the majors. And he was saying that the most annoying part wasn't being called into the game on your 4th straight day, which is its own issue. The most annoying part is you got to go through your whole routine on the mound in front of everyone.
Sure.
And his point was, no matter how many times the umpire says, take your time, you got unlimited warm-up time. There's 30,000 plus people there.
For you.
Not to mention your infielders are just moseying around the infield thinking, okay, let's go. Come on, let's start. I'm sitting around. Everybody's bored. And so you can't help, like, from just a human standpoint to kind of rush yourself. And he said that can be a problem. Now, with that said, it's not like they asked him to do something he's never done before.
Right.
All they did was ask him to warm up quickly and come into a game earlier than expected.
And 3 of the first 4 batters were lefties, which we talked about. He's got better splits against lefties and righties
because he didn't throw strikes.
Usually versus those three batters, it was single walk.
Right.
You're like, come on.
So he ends up walking. He ends up recording. Trevor Richards records 2 outs. Can't even get them through the inning. They have to bring in Cole Sands.
Gives up 3 runs, leaves with the bases loaded.
Yes, for Cole Sands. So Cole Sands gets out of it. Now, Cole Sands sure as hell was not expecting to pitch in the 3rd inning. And I know some people were like, well, why did they leave Richards in to walk 5 guys? Well, Cole Sands did not start warming. They didn't start warming them both up because here's what happens if you warm both guys up immediately. You bring in Richards, and then you've burned Cole Sands. If Richards just has a decent outing and gets through an inning or 2, you're still going to need Cole Sands to pitch an inning or 2 to get you through to the 5th, 6th, 7th. So, once he walks 2-3 guys, throws a wild pitch or 2, then you start to have Cole Sands warm up, but that takes 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. So you're not planning for just a complete implosion in a spot where it's not like Richards had to come in for the bases loaded or something. Right. I get a guy coming in, he had to warm up quickly, he wasn't expecting to pitch that early. I'm willing to give you some leeway on that, but ultimately, maybe that's you walk the first guy, or even the first 2 guys. You bounce one or whatever. 5 walks is just not that's not a competitive outing. I mean, that's for a guy who's been in 7 years in the majors. They lost the game right there, obviously. Now, they didn't hit. It didn't matter. They didn't score any runs after that.
Sure.
So any runs would have lost the game at that point. But that was just a really disappointing And I know he's, that's not the impression he wants to make early on in his Twins career. But that was the story of that game, unfortunately. And the story lingers on because now we're waiting to hear what the Joe Ryan situation is. But
nice to see Jorge Lopez back on his feet.
Yeah, good for him. He got the win.
Yeah. Did he really?
I'm pretty sure he got credited with the win.
Oh, that's good.
So that's 2 out of 3 against the Cubs. But again, you gained ground. Baseball is a funny. I can't think of a worse 2 games to end that series on, and yet it was worse for Cleveland.
The good news is that the vibes in the Wrigley bleachers were not particularly good before Richards came on the mound, but by the time he left, it was a party in the bleachers at Wrigley. It was a lot of fun.
I'm shocked by that, John. I'm shocked. You didn't know what planet you were on. What are you talking about? So, before we talk about, we talked about some of the injuries. You also mentioned Brooks Lee's banged up. That's why you saw him playing second base instead of shortstop, because his shoulder is bothering him. Good enough to play, but not necessarily good enough to play shortstop is an interesting thing. You would probably like to shut him down for a while, but you're already down Correa. Willie Castro's also a little bit banged up, too, with his back since the All-Star break. So they're, like I said, it's reminding me of a couple years ago where the injuries start happening, a few big ones, but also just everybody's starting to get banged up. And that always happens in the dog days of the season or whatever, but it does seem to feels like the depth is very much getting tested in a way that even the guys who are playing, you start to wonder how worn down are some of these guys when you start to see, this guy hasn't hit for a while, that guy hasn't hit for a while.
Exactly right.
So that's where the Twins are at. Now, I'm sure Cleveland would tell you they're in that spot too. So it's not woes me Twins. It's just the reality.
A lot of teams that are in that spot.
That you're in. Before we start talking about some other stuff, let's talk about our presenting sponsor for the show, Black Stack Brewing.
Yeah, Black Stack Brewing has been a local, I think, secret in a lot of ways. You talk to people who really know beer, they often come up as one of the best breweries in the Twin Cities, especially if you're sort of into the hazy IPAs, but they've got a variety of other stuff as well. And now they've got good news because now you can find Black Stack beer all over the state of Minnesota, from Grand Marais to Rochester to Winona to Fargo. That includes the local 75 New England IPA, which is kind of their flagship, the one they're really known for, but also Slopes French Pilsner and Pull Tabs Pale Ale and Uncut Jams and their Strawberry Rhubarb Sour. Like, they pay attention to this stuff, and you're going to enjoy trying out some of the various stuff, and now it's a lot easier for you to find. You just have to look for it at your local stores.
Yeah, if you go to Black Stack's website, Google Black Stack beer, there's a where to find us page, and they're always adding to it, like you said. Like, so if you're in a neighborhood, you look up what's in it. And here's the thing: if it's not yet in a store in your neighborhood, and there are liquor stores in your neighborhood, tell them to start carrying Black Stack because it's available now.
The distributor is absolutely contacting them. They know that it's out there. So stop by either their second largest tap room in the state of Minnesota, or look for them at your local brewery. Their brewery tap room is near 94 and 280, but again, or ask them from your local liquor store.
Closer to Target Field is Brixworth,
which is closely related to Black Stack Brewing. It's basically the same family, and you'll sometimes find some of Black Stack's beers on tap, though, or they will do a collaboration with Brixworth. Brixworth also, not surprisingly, because they're the same family, known for their beers and also for that pizza.
It's in the old Darby spot in North Loop. So great pre or post game or between games today.
Well, it's got a great patio
for Twins. Great patio. I just picked up pizza from there maybe a week and a half ago,
and
it's really good.
Yeah,
it's like it's Detroit style, if you know what that is, which I love. They also had they got good burger that I got. I'm trying to think what
Dana
else.
Wessel raves about their wings. He's told me to go after their wings.
He's throwing out the first pitch.
I know, I understand that. In fact, their Detroit style pizza is so good it was ranked number 1 in the state by the Washington Post. It is a really good place to pregame and postgame for a Twins.
They also have brunch now on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yep.
So 1 block from Target Field's Gate 6, basically where the North Star line, you go a block from there, you're good to go. You can Google Brixworth, follow the signs to their patio. That's right, they do have a sign that says like
that's
around
right. That's it. It's kind of around the back of a very cool old warehouse building.
Great pre and post game spot for Twins fans.
That's right. Or you can just by the way, they have a second location in Burnsville. So if you just want to watch the games on TV, you can't make it to Target Field. Check out the Brixworth location in Burnsville.
Okay. I don't know. Joe Ryan. We can talk more Monday about what the actual diagnosis and timeline is and all that stuff. Right. But like I said, I certainly would bet on him going on the 15-day injured list at the bare minimum.
Sure.
And that would be optimistic if they're like, we think he can miss 3 starts and come back.
Yeah.
It's funny, though, with injuries, like, you can't outrun them. And what I mean by that is, no matter how healthy you've been, and
sure,
early on this season, especially on the starting pitching front, the Twins were remarkably healthy. Like, they didn't have a guy miss a start for injury.
Yeah.
Now, they bumped Louis Varland from the rotation and replaced him with Woods Richardson.
Yeah.
But their top 5 guys made, like, their 15 turns in the rotation without anybody getting injured. Buxton was healthy. Correa was healthy. Up and down the lineup.
Yeah, they were. They lost almost everybody to some sort of IL stint in the lineup. A lot of their big bats. We had Correa on the IL for a little bit, Buxton on the IL for a little bit.
They were minimum.
Royce Lewis on the IL for the. I mean, the lineup had its issues, but the rotation itself was really doing well, and the lineup issues seem to be managed. You know what I mean?
They just had more depth, but
right, yeah, that's true.
Royce going down, he missed a bunch of time. That was the start of kind of what I'm feeling on this. But the rotation now, you're down Paddock with, indefinitely. You're going to be down Joe Ryan for some period of time. Hopefully it's not that long. Now you're basically, for however long Joe Ryan is out, if we assume that Paddock is not going to be an imminent return here, you basically have Pablo Lopez, Ober, and rookies. And that's precisely what they wanted to avoid. Yeah. Now, it is different to have to turn to rookies, or I'm going to count Varland as a rookie.
Sure.
Yeah, I will technically a rookie, but he might as well be a rookie. Right. In August and September.
Unestablished starters. How about that?
I mean, I'll call him a rookie. Who cares? What is the Rookie of the Year eligibility going to sue us for calling him that? Yeah, he's a rookie. It's different. You want to avoid that on opening day, in April, in May, maybe even in the first half. I'm not saying you want to be turning to 3 rookies in the rotation at any point in the season, but it is much different to do it in August and September because, well, first of all, in August and September, you can see the finish line. Right. If you're counting on 3 rookie injury replacement guys in April, well, what happens if there's more injuries? That was the big concern. It's not to say you can't have more injuries between now and the end of the season, but you're now looking at 7 weeks instead of 6 months to make it through the end of the season. And then the other thing is, you would hope, and we've certainly seen this with Simeon Woods Richardson. I would argue now of late we've seen it with David Festa. Yep. Hopefully we'll see it with Louis Varland today and going forward. A rookie in August is different than a rookie in April in that Simeon Woods Richardson.
We'll see it too. We see it too.
Maybe,
right?
yeah. They've made progress. Some of them have gone from AA to AAA to the majors. Some of them have established themselves in the majors. Sure. Some of them have looked good for 100+ innings in the majors in Simeon Woods Richardson's case. So they're still rookies, but it's much different. But on the other hand, with some rookies like Simeon Woods Richardson, the opposite can be true too. There can be a downside to that, which is, he's looked really good for 20+ starts in the majors. Is he wearing down now? Right. Which we've seen now the last couple of starts. So he's going to start a game in this series too, which is going to be big. But the thing, with injuries, I just think it's a frustrating thing because it really is like the big bad in a horror movie. There's you can't get far enough away from it.
That's true, yeah. That's right.
And eventually you're going to walk around a corner and the guy with the hockey mask is just going to be sitting there.
That's right. Yeah,
like, there's no distancing yourself from it because what happened before doesn't matter. And in some cases you go, well, they've been remarkably healthy. Well, maybe that means the pitchers have thrown a lot of innings and they're more likely to get hurt. And so it is frustrating to be like, you're back to where you didn't want to be. On the other hand, you've given your depth time to mature and develop and get their feet wet in the majors and all that. And, Simeon Woods Richardson, he's a rookie, but he's got plenty of experience now in the rotation.
Sure.
David Festa has now made 5 appearances in the majors, and it seems to have gotten his footing a little bit. And Louis Varland, well, he's been up and down and mostly in the minors this year. I don't think he's going to come up and be overwhelmed by the moment at this point because he's pitched, 15, 20 games already in the majors. So they're a little bit different than a typical rookie, whereas the guy you mentioned, Zebby Matthews, he's made, I think, 3 or 4 AAA starts.
That's right.
That's right. And he was at single A on opening day.
Right.
So if they need another rookie, which now he would be the next in line, because my assumption is before Ryan went down with the injury in Chicago, Louis Varland was going to come up and start one of today's games, one of the doubleheader games. Now my assumption is he'll do that, obviously, but then I think he'll just stay.
He's trying out, or maybe not even trying out. Maybe he's just the default answer.
Right. I think he's going to stay in the rotation for Joe Ryan, and then
unless they turned to Randy Dobnik at this point. You know what I mean?
He hasn't exactly.
No, he hasn't been.
He pitched 3 innings in relief of.
Yeah.
Who did he pitch?
That was Simeon Woods Richardson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And gave up 2 or 3 runs or something. But, yeah, I mean, your other options are Dobnik, Caleb Bosley, who we've seen a little bit, Zebby.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, Zebby's not even on the 40-man roster, but your needs supersede that at this point. So
to your point, they started this season with 5 veterans because DeSclafani was supposed to be in there too. Let's don't forget that injury that cost them an entire year.
60% of their planned rotation is now injured.
That's right. Yeah. All 3 of the 4 guys in their most important series of the year so far were supposed to be at AAA at the beginning of the season.
It's true.
Yeah.
But Cleveland's in a similar spot if you look at their probables. So maybe there's a chance Paddock returns in September. Maybe there's a chance, let's hope, that Ryan returns in September or even late August. We'll see.
When on the I should just mention on the Gleeman the Geek Patreon episode, on the mailbag episode on Wednesday, one of the questions we got was, why hasn't Louis Varland been moved to the bullpen yet? And the answer was sort of like,
I bet we don't get that question this week.
And I mean, there's some legitimacy. That's not a ridiculous question to ask because it's just sort of
it was asked, by the way, about 2 hours before Joe Ryan got injured.
Exactly right.
And we gave the answer, which was, if no one gets injured,
he's the backup plan right now, right?
He's in the bullpen. Otherwise, he's the backup plan.
That's right. By September, they might feel a little more comfortable with that if they've got enough.
So we'll see.
Arms.
I mean, the nice thing about the theoretical upside of being forced to turn to rookies, and make no mistake, they're being forced to turn to them.
Right.
I mean,
yes.
Someone like DeSclafani, it's possible he would have pitched himself out of the rotation or been replaced. But, obviously Joe Ryan, if healthy, is going to be in the rotation, and Paddock, if healthy, would have been in the rotation too. But the upside to being forced to turn to these guys is, we've certainly learned a lot more about Simeon Woods Richardson.
Sure.
There's more to learn in terms of how he finished the season.
Right.
But you're certainly going to be a lot more comfortable with him as a 2025, 2026 option.
Yeah.
Festa, same thing. If no one had gotten hurt and Festa had just been pitching at AAA this whole time, yes, him dominating AAA hitters can give you confidence and can help, think of him as a prominent prospect and all that stuff, and you can pencil him in. But until...
But you're not necessarily convinced that you're going to put him in the opening day rotation, right?
But this changes that. I mean, if he pitches as well as he has the last 2 or 3 outings and for the most part can continue that down the stretch, it certainly changes your viewpoint of him heading into next season. Louis Varland, same thing, whether he's in the rotation, bullpen, whatever. This is another opportunity for him to say, let's put those bad first 4 starts this season in the rear view.
Let's build on the last 2 that I had up here.
And
much better, right?
Has been great at AAA. He had that horrendous start about 5 or 6 starts ago.
Right after he was demoted back down to AAA.
Gave up 12 runs, literally 12 runs in one game. And that's, his overall numbers are going to look horrible forever because of that.
Right.
But since then, he's made like 5 starts. He's got a 1-something ERA, great strikeout to walk ratio, very few homers allowed, getting more swing and miss at the top of the zone with his fastball, which is something he's been working on. Pitch mix changes a little bit that he's been working on. So, again, it's an opportunity for him. Not all opportunities will be positive. Right. One of these guys might struggle. One of these guys, Simeon Woods Richardson, might show durability issues. Festa might have a few bad starts. Maybe Louis gets knocked around, whatever it is. But the possibility exists that not only can you help right now, and they need the help right now,
right,
but that you can help yourself and help the Twins going forward by saying, think of me as a major leaguer now.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have to be a rookie at this point. Here's one other thing I'll say. Rich Hill
we saw that.
Is throwing for teams in Massachusetts near his home.
Yeah.
I don't know that the Twins are one of the teams that are going to go watch him, but maybe they should be.
Yeah.
They like Rich Hill.
You can't have him in the postseason, right? You can only have him in the regular season? If you sign him after August 1st?
No, because he'll be in, I think it's September 1st if you're in the organization.
1st? Okay.
You're thinking of the trade deadline.
Okay, all right.
I'm not sure. Maybe they changed those rules because
I can't remember either.
No August waiver trades. But, wow, if you're starting him in a playoff game, they didn't even want to start him in a playoff game the year he was a full-time member of the team.
Right,
Rich Hill is 44 years old. So look, and he wasn't that great last year, but he was,
he can work some magic for 6 weeks.
Yeah, maybe for 4 or 5 innings to start.
Right, that's it.
I want him in the majors because he's older than me.
Yes,
and I don't think there's anybody else for whom that's true in the majors.
Scherzer's not.
Scherzer's not even close to older than me.
Okay.
Verlander, I don't think so. Once Nelson Cruz retired, and there was one other very old pitcher. But yeah, I need him to come back because he's older than me. Also, Rich Hill was a lot of fun to cover. He's a real interesting guy. He's like the most intense guy ever on the mound, and then the least intense guy ever off the mound.
Yes, that's right.
I don't ever forget that spring. It might have been my first spring because it was 2020, right? When they had him, the short season. I think it was.
That sounds right.
His kid would always be in the clubhouse opening packs of baseball cards. And Rich Hill would always just be sitting, kind of cross-legged, dad style, sipping a coffee and doing a crossword from the newspaper. Not like a printed out crossword.
Right, yeah, right.
And I just thought, and he was only like 41 or 40 at that. I just thought, well, this is the perfect old-ass pitcher here. So I wouldn't mind seeing him back, but the question you have to ask is, is he better today than these rookies that we just finished talking about?
Yeah.
And B, if he's not that much of a better bet at age 44, who knows? He hasn't pitched all this season. Yeah. Is it worth that, upgrade or neutral grade to then not let these rookies try to flourish in the ways that we just talked about? So, I don't know. We'll see. It wouldn't hurt him to go watch Rich Hill throw, I suppose.
No, I suppose. At this point, they've got to be thinking a little bit about their depth.
If they could sign him to a minor league deal, I'm going to guess they would sign Rich Hill to a minor league deal. I can't see Rich Hill wanting to sign a minor league deal because he could have done that 6 weeks ago and gone and got ready. But
you're right.
We'll see. The other pitching injury situation that is also not good is Brock Stewart, which I'm hoping to get a more substantial update on him today too. I would put him in an even, there's uncertainty because we haven't heard an official timeline, but I would be surprised. Well, let me put it this way. I would not be surprised if he's out for the season.
Right.
Hopefully he's able to avoid surgery on his shoulder, but anytime you miss 3 months, which he did, come back, make like 2 or 3 appearances where your velocity is down and go right back on the IL, you don't have to connect that many dots to realize something ain't right here. Something big picture is not right. And he, given his extensive injury history, unfortunately, makes that even more likely. That would be a big setback. I think at the very least, again, we'll hopefully hear a bigger update today on him. But at the very least, you have to plan on not having him. Yeah. You can't plan on having your preferred, late inning trio of Duran, Jackson, Stewart. Yeah. Which, when healthy, that's one of the best in the league. That was a major strength for the Twins last year and at the beginning of this year. You can't have that. You can't count on having that. Now, the good news with that, and there's no I wrote about this yesterday, but you can't replace how good Brock Stewart was,
right?
Because prior to these 3.
Because the only person close to him is Duran.
Not even that. You can't be much better. No one, because these last 3 outings where he was clearly not right physically and then went back on the IL bloated his ERA. He gave up more runs in that than he had in his previous 40-something innings.
Right.
Last year and prior to coming back this year, he had thrown, I think, 41 total innings for the Twins, and he has 0.66 ERA.
Right.
0.66. You can't be better than that.
That's right.
Now, I'm not saying that's sustainable or his true talent level, but there's no replacing that.
Sure.
What you're hoping for is that some of the guys who have stepped up from the right side of that bullpen, primarily Cole Sands and Jorge Alcala, are able to kind of collectively make the gains they've made can help, carry some of the weight that Stewart would have been carrying.
They can help out the 7th inning and push Jackson Duran to stay in the 9th.
Now, it would have been nice to have those 2 and the trio, and you have 5 righties that you can count on. The other thing,
one other point about that is the Joe Ryan injury ends up impacting not just the depth of the starting pitching, but it also impacts the depth of the relief. Because, like we just said, one of the things that was in play was Louis Varland moving to the bullpen, where he was so effective last year in August and September, and the fact that that he is the pivot point for two different things. He's both the important piece in the bullpen, but also a piece in the rotation. A critical piece in the rotation means that he's kind of probably out of play for that.
This
for a
is
little
why
while.
they continue to develop him, as a starter, because one, that's more valuable, or not necessarily more valuable, more of a scarce commodity. A quality starter is always going to be harder to find in number than a quality reliever. But also in the near term, relief you can patch together. I mean, we've seen that. You can find, lightning in a bottle with guys who are like Brock Stewart, who are coming back off the scrap heap and all that stuff. Right. Cole Sands. Nobody ever expected Cole Sands to do like this. Yeah. Whereas it's much more difficult to do that as a starter. But yeah, to your point, I think, if Joe Ryan were or can be healthy again,
right,
you might see a scenario much like last year where somewhere around September 1st, they start to transition Varland back to the bullpen so that he can join the bullpen and be a 1 or 2 inning guy for them down the stretch like he was last year. Well, with Stewart out, maybe that would have hastened that timeline a little bit. Maybe you would have started to see that 2 weeks from now instead of 3 or 4 weeks from now. But you can't do that. He's starting today, and he might be taking Ryan's turn in the rotation indefinitely. Yes. You can't really afford to do that. Right. So, but they do have one other potential bullpen reinforcement coming.
Yes, they do.
And I actually won't be shocked if we see him during this series activated.
I'll be a little surprised if we don't see him activated.
Yeah,
today.
We'll see.
Right.
Is Justin Topa, who you might be saying, who? Don't blame you. He's yet to throw a pitch for the Minnesota Twins.
Right.
He came over in the Jorge Polanco trade from the Mariners. At the time, we both kind of assessed him as the second most important of the 4 players that they received in that trade. Mm-hmm. The least important was DeSclafani, we agreed, and he then became very unimportant because he blew out his arm.
Basically, he was a $4 million salary dump.
Yes. And then there were 2 prospects. Topa is a guy sort of like Stewart who had bounced around, been hurt a lot early in his career. I think he's like 28, 29 right now. Got healthy last year finally for the Mariners, who had picked him up, I think, on a minor league deal or a waiver claim or something like that. I mean, he's been everywhere. And he had like a healthy, durable, 70-inning type of bullpen season. Yep. By the end of the year, he was pitching the 7th and 8th inning for them, relatively high leverage for a good team, playoff caliber team. He's a guy who has, good raw stuff with a high-velocity sinker, gets a lot of ground balls, but also a decent number of swing and miss strikeouts. Doesn't give up many homers. Unfortunately, probably part of the reason the Mariners were willing to include him in that trade for Jorge Polanco was he has a lot of arm problems in his past, but also has some knee issues in his past. And he reported to spring training, and he was fine, and he pitched in a couple of games. And then he was covering home plate in a game like in early to mid March and tweaked his knee.
Right.
And it's the same knee he's had problems with in the past. And initially they were hoping he'd miss, a few weeks and come back in April maybe even, certainly by May. And then he had a setback there. And then my understanding is he likely needs surgery. But the idea was... And we talked about this 2 months ago when they kind of laid that out for him on the rehab front. But the idea was, well, if he has surgery, he's out for the season.
Right.
But it's more of a 2 to 3 month recovery for a surgery than a 6 month to 9 month recovery for a surgery. So you can afford to wait in terms of how it affects next
end
year.
Of the season. Right.
If you have it in October, let's say, you'll be ready by spring training. Whereas if you do a more substantial...
If you do it in August, you'll be ready by October, by November. That doesn't do you any good.
So what he's basically trying to do, at least my understanding last time we talked to him, super nice guy. I remember I ran into him in the hallway after he had thrown a bullpen session, and he was very frustrated, but was still talking about his injury and willing to answer questions. This was like maybe a month and a half ago. But the idea is, can he contribute down the stretch and either avoid the surgery altogether, maybe, I don't know, I'll find out maybe more about that today, or contribute and then have the surgery and then be ready for next year. But if he can't, and he's been rehabbing with the Saints here for the last week and a half.
It's looked pretty good.
Yes. Yeah. Velocity's been good. Results have been pretty good. The question with him isn't the arm at this point, although he has had a history of arm problems. he's got really good stuff. I mean, he's a mid-90s sinker type of guy. He's certainly a seventh inning or better type of reliever if healthy.
He could be at least another Alcala /
sort of.
Sands, right?
The question with him is just, will the knee hold up? And that's what he's kind of trying to figure out. And I think from the Twins' perspective, if his arm looks good right now and he's not in a lot of pain knee-wise, let's get him up here and get what we can out of him. And if eventually he needs to get shut down, he gets shut down, but they could use the bullpen help for however long it takes. And right now, down the stretch, however long. So that's a potential bullpen reinforcement. I should also note that they signed Giovanni Gallegos to a minor league deal. He made his Saints debut last night with a scoreless inning. He was a longtime St. Louis Cardinals setup man and occasional closer. Had a real nice run for from 2019 to 2022, 3 or 4 years there where he was, 275 type of ERA, 10 plus strikeouts per 9 innings, mid-90s fastball with one of the better sliders in the National League. Got off to a similar normal start last season and then had some arm problems, struggled down the middle and stretch of last season, was shut down with I can't remember if it was shoulder or elbow problems with him in September, then started this year back in a setup role and just struggled. Just wasn't good. Velocity was down. Slider wasn't getting as much, swing and miss, but really his fastball was just getting clobbered. Back on the IL, came back, actually was okay for 6 or 7 innings, but then they picked up a bunch of guys at the trade deadline and needed the roster space, they being the Cardinals, and designated him for assignment and then released him. He signed a minor league deal with the Twins last week, reported to AAA, pitched an inning. He's one of these guys that you don't know what you're going to get. They're going to want to find out here over the next week or two, where's he at from a stuff standpoint? Is he healthy? Has he aged out of just being a good reliever, even if he is healthy? But it wouldn't shock me, given his track record of being a high-end setup man, if he puts together a half dozen decent outings at AAA, it wouldn't shock me if
he finds his way into the bullpen over here someplace, starting maybe lower leverage and then moving his way up.
So that's someone to watch. And then I'll also point to Ronnie Henriquez, who's pitched pretty well of late at AAA, who's a guy they like from just a raw stuff standpoint, too.
Where did they get him back from? What trade did they get him in?
Ronnie Henriquez?
Yes.
The Mitch Garver trade.
Right. The Mitch Garver was part of
Texas.
That's right. It
was Kiner Falefa and Ronnie Henriquez for Mitch Garver, and then Kiner Falefa was immediately traded to the Yankees for our old friend JD, Josh Donaldson.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Enriquez is somebody who I think we had pretty high hopes for, say, coming out in 2022, 2023, and
he just hasn't been healthy.
He just hasn't quite put it all together. Before we go on to any other stuff, let's talk a little bit about, the Twins aren't the only team playing this weekend. Minnesota team playing this weekend. The Vikings are kicking off their preseason thing, and that means football season's here. The chill in the air, like I mentioned.
It's fantasy football season.
It's also fantasy football
season. No
season.
better way to prepare for your drafts. I know people do a million of them, than RotoWire. We've both been customers of RotoWire for years and years.
Right.
Not only can they do all the customizable cheat sheets and rankings and advice and analysis that you need to do your draft, but then they can help you throughout the season with their player news, which nobody has a better database. And the beautiful thing is you can look up a player's entire injury history.
God, it's unbelievable. For instance, if you want to look up Gallegos, you might be able to find out a little something that he had a shoulder injury in September.
Yeah. RotoWire is the best in the business at that. And you can...
And with, by the way, instant updates. So, as stuff develops during training camp and news breaks, somebody's missed a couple practices because of a hamstring
They'll have a blurb about that.
They've got absolutely all of the updates on that. And they change things like their projected values on these particular players based on this stuff. This is not your old, grab a magazine and show up at the draft with a magazine. This is up-to-date stuff that you can use that is actionable, not just before the season, before your draft, but during the season. As you pick players up and stuff.
You can get a free trial for all of our listeners. 2 days. You can schedule this free trial for if you're doing 2 drafts in 2 days.
Yes.
Schedule it for they don't care. They're so confident that you will fall in love with this product and realize the value of RotoWire as an entity that you will want to stick with them through the entire season. We do.
Right,
But you can get a totally free 2-day trial if you go to rotowire.com/Gleeman. And when I say totally free, I mean it, because no credit card required. It's not one of those where after 2 days it kicks in for $1 million a month.
Right. That's right.
It's totally free. Again, rotowire.com/Gleeman. Get a 2-day free trial. Check it out. Use it for your drafts. Use it for 100 drafts.
Did you not recommend it to Rocco Baldelli, as I recall?
I did. And in fact, I told him, he was talking about something. I wish I could look
up about the promo code?
Some of his injury history. And I said, you should go on RotoWire. And he goes, yeah, I don't know. It's that subscription. And I said, rotowire.com/Gleeman. Free trial.
Free trial for 48 hours, Rocco.
This was last year. Yeah. I don't know if he took me up on it or
More
not.
about Chill in the Air. We've got back to school shopping right now. That's one good excuse to give yourself to try out some Raycon earbuds. Which, listen, you probably, I don't know if you're still messing around with wired headphones or not, or maybe you could use a new set of wireless earbuds.
I just sent, literally 2 days ago, my mom a pair of Raycons.
Did you really?
Because the non-Raycons that she had,
right,
that she bought, broke.
Fantastic.
So I thought, well, here, I'll send you this.
That's
I'll
right.
put my money where my mouth is. On a sponsor of ours.
They give a 30-day happiness guarantee, so if she's not happy, they can send them back in. They are really well-engineered earbuds. Like
they're easy,
right.
Which, when I'm sending them to my mom, she has about the technological level that I do, which is to say not much. So in terms of pairing it with Bluetooth and having it charge easily and well and quickly, all that stuff.
Long battery life, all the stuff that you need. Right?
If you go...
And it didn't cost you an arm and a leg.
Yes.
Because
I went to buy Raycon, BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com/Gleeman. You can get 20 to 40% off site-wide. That's right. You'll get up to 40% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/Gleeman. That's buyraycon, BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com/Gleeman. All right. Another bullpen, we talked about Zebby Matthews on the rotation front. It's similar to Varlin in that, if the rotation gets healthier, you can move Varlin to the bullpen at some point.
Right.
You're going to want him as starting depth as long as you can, unfortunately, at this stage. But if the rotation doesn't get healthy and you need Varlin in the bullpen, well, then Zebby Matthews is essentially in the Varlin spot as the next in line.
Right.
And so you can't really screw around with him that much either, because if Varlin struggles or Woods Richardson struggles or Fester struggles or somebody else gets injured, well, then all of a sudden there's a call to St. Paul for him possibly too.
That's right.
Or Dobnik or Bosley or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you can make it into September relatively healthy, but you still need Varlin, I wouldn't be shocked if you see Zebby Matthews as a bullpen option.
Yeah.
Again, it's a rookie, but it's not that much different than where Varlin was this time last year.
Yeah.
He had made a few major league appearances, obviously, and Zebby Matthews just got
especially if it looks
AAA
more and more like they're heading towards the postseason, where they want to make sure that they have somebody ready for those postseason games.
Well, yeah. It depends on Topa. It depends on Brock Stewart.
Sure.
They just have a lot of, unfortunately, like we talked about, from an injury standpoint, there's just so many question marks at this stage. And we've learned, sad as it is to say, that, these question marks tend not to get answered overwhelmingly positive manner.
Sure. Yeah,
so just, if there are 5 question marks, I assume 3 or 4 of them are going to be answered in a way that you don't like.
Right, yeah.
But, Zebby, his ERA has not been great at AAA, but if you look at the secondary numbers, I think he's got like 25 strikeouts and 1 walk or something. He pitched last night,
right.
5 innings, 1 run ball. I think he had 6 strikeouts and 1 walk. He's made huge strides as an overall prospect, but from a stuff standpoint, again, similar to where Louis Varlin was last year, where you look at him and you go, when did this guy start throwing 96?
Right.
Yeah. And he's got the great control, a little bit different approach and mix than Louis Varlin. But I think if he's another guy that if you said just air it out for an inning at a time or 2 innings at a time once through the order, you might be able to get him up to 97, 98, 99 or something like that. So they do have some options. It's just some of their kind of intriguing bullpen options are going to be needed as rotation depth. And so it's a fine line to walk between one's a luxury, being able to add a power arm to the bullpen. And that doesn't mean it's not important, but it is a luxury.
Right.
And the other is a need where we just need guys to start who aren't, I don't want to say names, but aren't so-and-so from AAA. That's just a nobody. But that's where they are for the bullpen. So, yeah, this not not the greatest series to be heading in with a bunch of pitching question marks and stuff. But like I said, Cleveland's from the rotation standpoint in the same boat. So
they have to I think they have to. You said a split is a split is bad news for the Twins. They just need to start making up some ground against Cleveland.
But when you're 0-5 against the team far,
that's right.
Splitting a 4-game series is at least a step
given all the things
right
that have going on right now, both in their lineup and in their rotation.
Yeah,
I might take a split at this point.
Let's talk a little bit.
We should also mention right after that they've got Kansas City coming to town.
Well, this is the thing. We talked about this the other day,
which might be a bigger series given the wild card race.
If depending on how these 4 games in 3 days go against Cleveland, you're going to have a much clearer view of your I don't want to say preferred path, but like your more likely path.
Right.
If you get swept or you go 1-3 in this series, your odds, like we said at the beginning, of winning the division are greatly diminished. They're going to be in 10% range.
Right.
But even regardless of what happens in this series, you're still going to be in pretty good shape for the wild card.
Right.
And if you lose this series to Cleveland, which then turns your attention more just naturally to the wild card situation, well, then you're welcoming in maybe your biggest competitor for one of those wild card spots, which is Kansas City, who have been neck and neck with the Twins now for 2 months, kind of bouncing back and forth between the second wild card and the third wild card.
Yep.
And so that's going to clarify some things too. I mean, if you were to lose this series to Cleveland and drop, 4.5, 5.5 games back in the division, let's say, then it's going to really, turn your attention towards the wild card.
Versus Kansas City matters a lot more.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
This is a big 6 days, I guess. 7 games in 6 days against division rivals, but not only division rivals, which is always going to be important, but, your 2 ways to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
There's probably 3.5 playoff spots available to the Twins.
Sure.
There's the division, there's the third wild card, there's the second wild card, which I think they're currently in. Right. And then there is the first wild card, but I think the odds of catching the AL East runner-up in that are pretty low, but let's give that a half, so 3.5. 2 of those spots, if you don't get them, are going to be filled by Cleveland and Kansas City, probably.
That's right.
And so you can do the math on that. So, this is a huge series.
Followed by a potentially huge series.
Yeah, you're right. I meant a huge homestand. You got to face Cleveland, which has been a huge problem for them this year. And then you got to face Bobby Witt Jr., which has been a huge problem for everyone this year. And
that's right.
We're going to know.
This is supposed to be the fun part of the season, man. This is it.
It's from a gambling mindset, this is the sweat.
Yeah, that's right.
This is
and it's also, by the way, going to be gorgeous weather.
Yes, not too hot, which I prefer.
Yeah, no neck fan for Aaron.
I'm spending approximately 16 hours at the ballpark today.
Yeah.
I would prefer not to sweat. And believe me, the people around me would prefer that too. As long as they're having a great time, just drip and sweat all over them and everything. But they've gotten used to it, thankfully. Phil said the other day to me in the clubhouse, in mixed company,
"Oh no,
why are you sweating so much?" And I said, "I don't know, Phil.
You just met me.
Genetics and obesity." Now, that got a good laugh, I'm going to be honest, from the people around us, but it's true. But I wanted to be like, "What are you, new here? Like, I've known you for 15 years. Have you ever seen me when I'm not sweating?" That's the situation. There are 49 games left, something like that. Let's call it 50. Not only John's not bird watching.
Right?
John really is like a 4-year-old. You just jingle keys in front of him.
Cardinal.
Yeah. Okay. What does that do for the listener, John? That's what I'm in it for.
Fascinating.
A bird, just fascinating. A bird outside in the summer. Oh my God.
Cardinal.
We already talked about Giovanni Gallegos, a beautiful cardinal. Who else is Sonny Gray is a beautiful cardinal. But just even if this weren't rivals, these are 7 of your remaining 49 games.
Right.
This is 15% of your remaining season here happens on this homestand.
Yeah.
And it's about as high stakes in terms of playoff odds as you're going to get in, early to mid August. And so I don't know. It's they're not entering the stretch in the best condition as a roster.
Right.
But this is the type of stuff you circle, the type of series you circle when the schedule comes out, 10 10 months earlier or whatever it is.
You're right.
Like you look ahead to this and go, maybe not the Kansas City aspect, although it's been clear for quite a while now that Kansas City's not going away.
Yeah.
They're the team that has shocked me more than any team in baseball this season. But Cleveland, certainly, you look at the schedule, you go, ooh, that's going to be a big series. Now, this was only supposed to be 3 games.
Right, yeah, that's right.
It turned into 4 because the April game got rained out.
And I expected us to be head at the point that we were ready into this thing.
I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't have shocked me if they were roughly tied at this point. I'm a little surprised that they're 3.5 back. But, we didn't think that the Twins were going to run away with it necessarily. But this is, as Rocco Baldelli sometimes will say, you got to play these games when they tell you got to play them.
That's right. Yep.
We'd like to play this with Correa. We'd like to play this with Joe Ryan and Brock Stewart and, Buxton not having a back problem. And there's a whole lot of things you can point to. But Cleveland will point to a lot of that same stuff.
Right.
And so this is an opportunity for the Twins to, we've talked so much about how since that horrible 7-13 start, they have the best record in the American League since then.
Yeah, right.
But that is so hard for people to fathom because a lot of people, I think, sort of gave up on them after the 7-13 start or just locked in an opinion that they maybe had. Plus the offseason frustration and all that stuff.
Also,
then you toss in the trade deadline.
You also just keep looking at the standings and you're like, yeah, but.
Definitely. I mean, Cleveland just has the best record, period.
That's right, yeah.
All that stuff is in there. This is an opportunity for the Twins to take, your own destiny in your hands here. And there's going to be a lot to play after this. And so no matter how these 2 series go, you're going to have an opportunity both to bounce back from that if you need to, but also it guarantees you nothing. I mean, you could go 5-2 in these 7 games and you still have to fight, but it is an opportunity to take care of your own, destiny here. We've spent so much of the season going, does Cleveland ever lose?
Yes.
I mean, is Kansas City ever going to come back down to earth? Are they always going to be this much better than certainly I expected them to be? Right. Well, this is an opportunity to do it yourself, to take care of your own business. You're not relying on some other team that's going to make 1,000 errors behind their pitcher when the Guardians are batting. You're not relying on some team, to hold Bobby Wood Jr. in check. Go ahead and do it yourself. Now, that's not an easy task, but this is...
As we found out, we're 0-5 versus Cleveland.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, Cleveland's got to be feeling much better, certainly, than the Twins right now in this spot. Right. But if you can win 3 out of 4 in this series at home, you can get to within legitimate striking distance for then what would be a Cleveland team that at that point will have lost 8 out of 9.
Yes. Right.
And is going to start to feel the heat a little bit.
Yep.
They got rotation issues. They got other issues. Yep. They're going to start to feel the heat a little bit. And if you can do that, I mean, the best case scenario here, or what you're really hoping for, it'd be great to say the Twins win all 7, but let's try to just win both series.
Right.
And that would mean going 5-2. That would be an incredibly good outcome for the Twins. And if they do that, they would emerge from this homestand with a playoff percentage probably nearing 90. Yeah. It's around 80-something as is. They'd be right there within striking distance of the division, and they would have a very good positioning in the wild card chase as sort of a fallback plan there. On the other hand, if you do not step up in this series, you are really going to put yourself behind the 8 ball here both ways.
Yep.
Because if you lose this series to Cleveland, they're going to have not an insurmountable lead, but they're going to put you into a 10% chance spot here where you got to really get hot and you're going to need some help from Cleveland's opponents. And then if you can't take care of business against Kansas City, they're going to jump you in the standings. And I don't care about 2nd place versus 3rd place, but they're going to jump you in the wild card standings. And you don't want to be that 3rd wild card. You might end up
you might want to be
but you don't want to be it in August. Because if you're the 3rd wild card in August, then you got the Red Sox nipping at your heels.
That's true.
You got the AL West runner-up nipping at your heels. You might want to, cross the finish line in 3rd instead of 2nd because it means avoiding the AL East runner-up.
Exactly right.
But you don't want to be in a spot where every loss or every win for the final 6 weeks of the season drops you in and out of the playoffs because that's where you'll be if you're in the 3rd wild card spot. So
suddenly that Red Sox series that they've still got the remaining of their schedule becomes it's already still a big
you're just at the mercy of well, let's hope the Red Sox don't win 7 in a row. And if they do, we're screwed. You don't want to be in that spot. That's right. A few other things that we can finish up here. Should we do our last sponsors before?
Yeah, let's do that quickly. Dan Hodgen, not just a great real estate consultant, not just a guy with a pretty jingle, which we're going to be playing. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that.
Oh, that's what he is known for by his friends and family now.
But he's also just one of the more experienced real estate agents right here in the Twin Cities area. 5-star service since 2001. And by service, I mean like he identifies your goals. He'll help you search for properties. You can evaluate the market value of your property, all the stuff that you look for from a real estate consultant.
And but the big innovation that he has here that can help you save money is a normal commission structure for a house.
That's right.
Is 3.3%.
That's right.
On the listing side. For like a $400,000 house, that's roughly $12,000 and change.
Right. That's right.
That is coming out of your profits, basically,
or
your revenue. He will list properties for a flat $6,000 fee.
That's right.
So for a $400,000 property, if you're going by a flat $6,000 fee instead of the 3.3% commission, you would save roughly $6,000. That's roughly half price.
That's right.
And that's something that he's created. And if you want to learn more about Dan or that fee structure that he's changed, go to Twins 6K, like the number 6 and the letter K. Right. Twins, because that's his favorite team.
He wanted you to be able to remember it. And Dan Hodgin is not an easy name to remember. But hey, especially
Twins
there's two M's and all kinds of stuff.
6K is the flat fee, 6,000. So go to Twins 6K, and he can help you from start to finish, whether you're buying or selling or just sort of looking.
Yeah, you can get in contact that way. You can also search listings and find out what your home is worth.
Or you can just listen to this jingle right now.
Call Dan Hodgin, he's your man. He'll sell your lodging for just $6,000. From western Wisconsin to the Twin Cities land. At twin6k.com, find Double N Dan. He'll give you his all for just $6,000. To find your dream home or sell yours today. Use your noggin, find Dan Hodgin at twin6k.com.
All right, and chill in the air also means... We mentioned Twins game. We got a great homestand here. You're going to want to get tickets to this homestand, and we can't tell you a better way to get tickets than to use the Game Time app.
They specialize
Game Time app.
Last-minute tickets.
Yeah.
Which means if you're listening to this between the first and the second game of today's doubleheader, get tickets, and you can stroll right in
that is exactly
for the second game of the doubleheader.
Yeah, last-minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing. They'll show you the seat views. This is the Game Time app. It's not a website. You've got to download the app. You go and download the Game Time app, and when you create an account, you use the code Gleeman, and you're going to get like a $20 off your first purchase.
Yes. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem the code GLEEMAN, Gleeman. You get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right.
Plenty of people in Chicago using the Game Time app as well. It was fun too.
You're obsessed with this chill in the air, John. I kind of want it to get warm just so you shut the
I want to get warm just to watch you sweat more.
Yeah, well. Let's talk a little bit. We've been very pitching focused.
Yeah.
Because of all the injuries, obviously.
Right. But we got some injuries on the lineup, too.
Well, that's true. We talked about Correa and Buxton and everything. Brooks Lee, etc. Let's talk about Matt Wallner for a second. Winter Meltdown guest Matt Wallner. They weren't great in Chicago overall, but he had, I think, 3 hits, a walk, and a hit by pitch. He has a 1,300 OPS since coming back from the minors.
Right.
Which was exactly 1 month ago.
Yeah.
He played 19 games, I think, in a month. Because the All-Star break was in there. During that month-long stint, his recall from AAA, he leads all of Major League Baseball in average exit velocity, hard hit percentage, barrel percentage, which was percentage of the balls in play you're hitting on the sweet spot, the barrel. Right. And here's a fun one: average distance per hit. His average hit over the last month, during which time he's hitting like 350, is 261 feet. Think about that. That's his average hit. That counts like squibbers and homers together.
That's amazing.
So nobody has done that. He's also, I think, top 4 or 5 in Major League Baseball in expected slugging percentage. And he's just been hitting the absolute snot out of the ball, as you like to say.
Yeah, he's worked his way up into the middle of the lineup when he hit 3rd or 4th yesterday.
At a time when, especially from the left side, so many of their guys are either hurt or in the minors. In Julian's case, Kirilloff's hurt, or just not consistently producing, like Kepler.
Yeah.
Willie Castro's
by the way,
had
has
some
moved
ups and
down
downs.
in the lineup.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Matt Wallner has really saved their ass here in a way he did much like last season when he came up, around midseason and really was one of their best hitters down the stretch. And the remarkable thing is, I think, given his early struggles, which was really only 25 bad plate appearances, but it was ugly.
Sure.
Then he goes to AAA for 2.5 months. Started crushing AAA pitching again. Comes up. He's been on absolute fire. I think people would assume, watching what he's done and his sort of narrative track record here, he must have cut way down on those strikeouts. No. He's striking out more than he did last season. Yeah. He's striking out 36% of the time, which tells me a few things. One, he's hitting 350. Well, that's short-lived. I mean, I could have told you that. But
sure.
He is not going to be a high average hitter. He is sacrificing average in the name of crushing pitches. Right. And in the same way that, let's say, on the other side, Austin Martin sacrifices average to put the ball in play.
Right.
Or sacrifices, power to put the ball in play.
Right.
Or Luis Arias on a more extreme front. Never hits homers now, but he never strikes out. So he's going to hit 300. But it's going to be sort of a punchless 300. Well, Matt Wallner might only hit 240, but he's going to make that 240 count.
Yeah.
He's going to hit very few singles, although he's mixed in some singles here. That's really helped.
Yeah.
But I looked, his batting average on balls in play since returning, is 560.
I was going to say, is it 600?
To put that, it's almost damn near 600.
Right.
To put that in perspective, a really good sort of, wow, this is probably going to come down. It's really good. Batting average on balls in play is like 325, let's say.
Okay.
The league average is like a shade under 300. It's like 290 something.
And he should have a pretty high batting average on balls in play because he has so much velocity.
The ball hard.
Yeah, he hits the ball hard a lot of the time.
The contact he makes, to use Austin Martin again, is more valuable on a per ball in play basis than the contact that pretty much any hitter, but especially guys like Arias or Austin Martin makes. Because when Wallner makes contact, his results are pretty much at an Aaron Judge level.
Right. Yeah,
there's not a lot of weak fly balls or choppers.
Right.
When he makes contact, he's hitting it 100 plus.
Yes.
And if it's being an out, it's because it got hit at somebody.
That's right. Yeah.
And we've seen it just hasn't been converted in outs. But I'm not so much caught up in the batting average because that's going to sink. I mean, that's going to sink like a rock. Whether he adjusts, doesn't. I mean, I'm a little worried that people are going to draw weird conclusions because his batting average is going to sink here. And people are going to go, here we go again. But the strikeouts are part of his game, and that can be frustrating, I know. But I really think people have gotten so frustrated by strikeouts, in part because, like, last year's Twins team, everybody in the lineup struck out, and they set the all-time record. But this year's Twins team has a below-average strikeout rate so that you can much more easily afford to have one or two guys in your lineup who are selling out for power and are willing to strike out a little bit. Right. And if you look at Wallner, if he's able to get his strikeout rate closer to 30% than 35, 38%, I think that would really help him. And if that's an adjustment he can potentially make, I wouldn't put it past him. But he hits the ball so hard that he can continue to be a really productive all-around hitter when he is striking out 33, 35, 37%. It's not ideal, and that does put you, that type of hitter stylistically does make you more at risk for long slumps.
Sure.
But it also puts you more, not risk, but for a stretch like this, where if he's just starting to just absolutely demolish the ball. And so you look at his overall numbers, he has an 887 OPS for his Twins career, which is now like 125 games. Last year, actually, 2 years ago, he got a cup of coffee. Right. Then last year, he played like half the season, and then this year, he's played.
Good year last year. Miserable start. That 887 OPS includes the miserable,
the whole thing.
Miserable few weeks at the beginning here, right?
Only one hitter in the history of the Minnesota Twins has a higher OPS through 126 career games, and that's Tony Oliva, who's always at the top of these lists. He was Rookie of the Year. He was, he's one of the best just natural hitters ever. You couldn't find two guys who are more different stylistically.
Probably.
I mean, they're both left-handed and they're both corner outfielders. But Tony Oliva was just smooth swing, line drives, batting titles, and Matt Wallner is, if I hit this, you guys are screwed.
Yeah, that's right.
And I might not hit it, but if I hit it, somebody's getting a souvenir. That's right. Or a big bruise if they try to get in front of this. Right. And so the batting average is going to come down, but And he's going to have stretches where you go, oh man, he's 1 for 15 with 12 strikeouts. If you can live through that, if you can stomach that, if you can plug your nose during those stretches, he is absolutely capable of stretches like this. We saw it last year. We've seen it in the minors. We've seen it right now over the last month. He has such a unique, like, damage-creating swing that it's not just a guy who's an all-or-nothing hitter. There's plenty of guys like that.
Sure.
But he's the guy that if he's making any sort of consistent contact, and he has made adjustments with his swing mechanics, which what he's swinging with is huge for him. Not chasing stuff down and in, because he's going to have some swing and miss. But I think he has a relatively good approach at the plate. He's a real good example of something we've talked about in the past. People always see a high strikeout rate and they assume the guy's a free swinger, when in reality a high strikeout rate often comes with guys who aren't free swingers because they're in 2-2, 3-2 counts where one swing equals a strikeout. Now, unfortunately, his swings don't create contact that much. He's near the bottom of the league with that. So he's susceptible when he gets to 2 strikes to being a strikeout. We've seen that with guys like Sano in the past. We've seen that with Joey Gallo in the past.
Yeah, there's
so
still some adjustments he might end up making as he gains more experience.
It's a fine line, but I think there's never been a guy, I feel pretty confident about saying this, there's never been a young hitter in the history of the Twins who had anywhere near this start through 125-something games, almost a full season, where he's got a damn near 900 OPS, where people have been less full of praise or more skeptical or more kind of but about him. And I get it. He's old for a rookie, and he doesn't necessarily look the part, and he's a swing and miss guy, and his strikeouts bug
sort
people.
Of an extreme case,
absolutely. But at the end of the day, he's played almost a full season's worth of games for a contending team in all circumstances. Right. He was one of their best hitters in the second half last year. He's been one of their best hitters over the last month since coming back up from AAA this year. At some point, I get the skepticism and I get the stylistic problems that people have with the high strikeout rate, and I'm not saying he's destined to be a Twins Hall of Famer. He's going to come back down to earth. I have no doubt about that. But at some point, why not just treat him like a young hitter who's got an 887 OPS through 125 games and at least just say, the production is the production, whether it's predictive or not. And he saved them at times last year. He has saved them at times over the last month. I really shudder to think what this lineup, as inconsistent as it's been since the All-Star break, what would it look like without Wallner in it? I mean, you'd have no production from the left side whatsoever. Yep. And so, I just wanted to give him some props, Matt Wallner.
I think another factor might be the fact that we all suffered through Joey Gallo's declining phase last year. There's I will,
and Sano too. But this is not the decline phase.
No, that's right.
He's a sophomore player.
I'm with you.
This is the phase, not the decline phase. So batting average is going to come down. But the power and the ability to just not hit the ball hard, but hit the ball as hard as anyone in baseball. And that is value. Whether you're a new school guy who likes to look at exit velocity and launch angle and all that, or you're just some guy who coached Little League 25 years ago and your goal is hit the ball hard. Yeah. That's what he's doing. He's hitting the ball harder than really anybody in all of baseball. He's in that Aaron Judge, Stanton category and just absolutely scolding the ball. And that's going to come with strikeouts.
That's right.
But, man, it's been valuable for the Twins.
As we watched the Twins kind of struggle with the Cubs pitching staff, which, Hendricks and Imanaga and Assad, right? I will tell you, I was excited. I would lean forward in my seat when Matt Wallner was one of the ones coming up to bat, and there aren't a lot of guys like that in this Twins offense. We were high on this Twins offense for a couple of months, and they deserved it because they were really putting up numbers. As much as we just spent time talking about the rotation and how they're going to have to pull things together here on a depleted piece, the offense right now has not been particularly adapted.
They've been without their MVP for a month.
Right. Miranda has been missing a fair amount of time, right? Wallner's been carrying the load. Kepler has kind of disappeared, right? Royce Lewis has been in and out of the lineup with, particular
he missed
injuries.
a chunk of that time,
right? Castro has cooled down a little bit, and then when he started to
very little production now from the catcher spot for quite a while now.
Yeah, with
Vasquez has actually been more productive, which isn't saying much, but I think, and they've struggled to get. Last year, what really boosted them towards the playoffs were the 3 rookies getting pushed into spots, Lewis, Julian, and Wallner, and all of them thriving.
Yeah.
We've seen that at times this year.
Yeah, I'd say going into the All-Star break, we saw something very similar.
Right.
We saw Wallner.
And now we're seeing Wallner really do it. And Lewis, when he's in the lineup, has been phenomenal, obviously. But Julian's still at AAA.
Right.
And then other guys, like I think about Martin, who we just mentioned, has really struggled. Here's what I'm worried about.
Looked like he was starting to come back up, and then
I mean, with Austin Martin, it's the opposite issue that Wallner has. He makes so much contact,
right?
But it is, and I thought this Cubs series was a great example. He came up a couple times with multiple runners on base where anything in play you would think would help, but he pops it up to the second baseman.
Right.
I mean, that's essentially like striking out.
Right.
But for whatever reason, people have such a visceral reaction to a strikeout as opposed to a weak pop up to the second baseman, where they're the same. And at least the strikeout is the result of swinging hard.
Right.
The pop-up is the result of not swinging hard and just sort of trying to put the ball in play. And his overall production has been, not good offensively. But I think he's capable of more than that. There's a skill set to be like more than that. But he hasn't been as good as I hoped at like shooting the ball the other way.
Right.
So many of his, he hasn't pulled the ball for power, but I didn't think he would do that. What I thought he would be better at is shooting the ball to right field, shooting the ball to right center.
I thought we'd find us just some drives into the gap on a regular basis.
There hasn't been enough line drives.
Yep.
A lot of the contact has just been kind of weak foul balls or fly balls, or just grounders to the infielders.
That's right.
And, he's a rookie, so we've seen 200 at-bats or something.
Sure.
So I'm not ruling anything out. But here's what's really worried me of late, about Austin Martin. The defense.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's good defensively.
Right. Well, that center field route that he took the other day was...
He's not looked good in center field at all.
No, which is where I thought he was going to be.
They were hopeful that just from an athleticism and speed standpoint, watching him play a decent amount in center field last year at AAA, there were a bunch of Twins officials that I talked to, especially when I was putting together my prospect rankings coming into the season, who were like, his best spot might be center field.
Right.
And if Buxton, they didn't know how Buxton's knee was going to be, he might end up being the full-time center fielder. Well, again, we're seeing a rookie, so maybe there's adjustments to be made and more comfort.
Especially in general, baseball players will tell you that moving from AAA outfield to the major leagues outfield does require an adjustment in terms of often figuring out routes on the ball. The extra layer of extra size of the stadiums can sometimes make.
Also, he's pretty much a career-long infielder who's now trying to learn the outfield.
You're right.
But man, he's looked bad in center field. He's looked bad in center field in a way that seems instinctual to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Like he just doesn't have the kind of awareness.
Get the quick read.
And I have not been as impressed with the speed and athleticism as I had hoped I would be. And so he hasn't made up for some of those, took a wrong step here. Byron Buxton
by catching up to a ball. Right?
Byron Buxton has pretty good awareness in center field, other than when walls are involved. But I think Byron Buxton's greatness in center field does not come from getting a perfect jump on everything. I think his jumps are pretty good.
He just makes up for it.
He just makes up for it because he can run everything down.
Yeah.
Austin Martin has not looked. I'm not saying he's slow, but it's, again, you're comparing him to major league center fielders.
Right.
I don't think his speed and athleticism has stood out in nearly enough of a way to be taking these bad routes to balls. I also don't think he's looked that good in left field. He's made a couple of real good catches at the wall.
It's true.
I don't think he's looked bad.
He does tends to have a pretty good feel for the wall. That much I'll give him
But you would think a guy like him in left field should be awesome in left field.
Right.
And we've seen at second base, he's played there a little bit more of late.
Yeah.
He doesn't look good at second base either, and he's got plenty of experience.
He's made a few plays there more recently, but yeah.
I think there's a lot of plays. I mean, I think to that ball at last homestand where he double clutched and he didn't throw home, but there's been a lot of double play turns and a lot of just sort of not routine, but kind of you would hope that a second baseman would make, where he's just a step short or a second short. And again, I'm not saying he can't develop more in that, but my worry with him is the offensive upside is not such that he can afford to just be passable defensively. Yeah. He can't be a left fielder.
Well, no,
with
that's
his
true.
bat.
You're right.
You know what I mean? He's not a guy that you just go, he's a left fielder.
Right.
If he's a left fielder, I don't know that he's a major leaguer.
Right.
Now, can he be a major leaguer being a left fielder, center fielder, second baseman? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the role they
or
envisioned.
Even just a straight center fielder. If
right.
He can,
but I don't know that. Again, this is what we talk about a lot with fielders. There's theoretical utility and functional utility.
Right.
And a lot of guys, when they come up, you hear, he can play everywhere.
Right.
And then it comes time to play him at shortstop, and you don't play him at shortstop. It comes time to play him in center field, and you don't play him in center field, or you play him in center field, and you just go, oof. And I looked up his numbers yesterday, like defensive metrics, because I thought maybe I'm just nuts. Maybe I'm just remembering the few bad plays and the bad routes and stuff. His numbers are horrendous. If anything, his defensive numbers at all three positions that we just mentioned are significantly worse than I even would have guessed. He's like 7 runs below average total, and he's only played, the equivalent of like a third of a season, if that. Yeah. And so the numbers in center are really bad on a per game basis. The numbers in left field are just below average, which you would think, why is he a below average left fielder? And then the numbers at second, it's a smaller sample, aren't that good. So I'm not writing him off. I think there are a lot of skills to like with Austin Martin, but he's an example of a guy who's been pushed into relatively extended duty and has come up a little bit flat, I think, on both sides of the ball. And the defensive aspect is the one that surprises me, or I guess worries me a little bit, because offensively he hasn't been productive, but he hasn't been like overmatched, and I think you can at least envision
he is trying to tread water at this level.
I think offensively you can envision, okay, if he makes a little bit better contact here, you can
gets on base a little bit more. He's dangerous on the bases. That much is fun to watch.
You can picture a better version of him offensively, that's right. And maybe I should just apply that same standard to defense too. But I don't know that that's how it works defensively necessarily. So I'm a little bit worried. The clock
is ticking on him a little bit too, because one of the things we're fighting is Kyle Farmer's been on a rehab.
Yes, he started at shortstop yesterday. Well, I mean, also, if Correa comes back, they're going to send somebody down.
That's right. Yeah.
It's going to be either Martin or Lee, I would assume.
That's right, yeah.
And for that matter, Brooks Lee hasn't looked good offensively. He's looked good defensively. He's sort of the opposite scenario. Is
I think Kyle Farmer is closer to coming back than Correa. Am I wrong about that?
Well, here's the thing about Kyle Farmer. What is close? You're talking about from a health standpoint.
Yeah.
But a rehab assignment can last 20 days.
Okay.
Are they motivated to bring him back?
I mean, I think they might be more interested in having him on the roster than Martin at this point.
Right, but he can't play the outfield. So if what you need is an outfielder.
Yeah, this way you got Willie Castro.
I'm thinking more if Correa's back relatively soon.
I'm thinking more like starter versus backup. You know what I mean? Like
although
they
haven't seemed to care that much about playing Martin halftime, which I'm fine with. Also, Manny Margot, I know he had the homer at Wrigley on the first game, but he's just playing a lot. Like,
listen, like I said, they had 3 guys out. And by the way, almost all of them were infielders on Monday. You had Royce Lewis and Miranda and Lee all out.
But also Buxton's out.
I'm sorry, too. Buxton,
but I guess what I'm getting at with Margot, and it seems like there's about one guy per year where this is true about with the Twins, where a guy gets brought in for a very specific role. And with Manny Margot, it was backup outfielder, yes, but right-handed hitter against left-handed pitching. Or right-handed bat off the bench as a pinch hitter. Well, we know he's like 0 for 20 million as a pinch hitter. So that's been hurtful. Right. And he's done okay against lefties as a starter. Like, he's been solid. Sure, hasn't been amazing, but he's been solid. But he has played an awful lot against righties over the last, 2 months. And you can absolutely say, well, they've been banged up.
Buxton was.
But here's my point. The role he was brought in for was theoretically not any action against righties. And you go, well, okay, but the outfield has the injuries have necessitated, and in part because Castro's been playing the infield too, have necessitated, opened up at bats against righties. Yeah. Well, my point would be, yes, he ain't the guy for that job. Well, and there were other guys you could call up, whether it's Deshaun Kersey or somebody like that, a left-handed bat who can be better for that job. But this goes back to Martin too. You could part ways with Margot and replace him against righties with a left-handed bat, but you still need a right-handed bat to hit against lefties, which is his primary role anyway. Right. And Martin, on paper, could fill that role, but boy, he has not filled that role. So what you get is just an awful lot of Manny Margot. And about a month ago, we were like, oh, he's really starting to come around. He ain't coming around. At a 640 OPS, he's on pace for 350 plate appearances, which is about 200 too many.
The guy that you said last year had this was Michael Taylor, right? Like the guy that was the equivalent last year of Manny Marco. This year was Michael Taylor in that position.
Yes.
That was because Buxton was so banged up. This year, I think it's a combination of Buxton has been a little bit banged up, but also there's just been this thing in left field going on where we're trying to figure out what the hell we're doing.
I think
there.
with Taylor definitely played about twice as much as they envisioned for him.
Right.
But Taylor's role, yes, he's a right-handed hitter. He would have played mostly against lefties, I think, but he was brought in as Buxton insurance.
Right.
Whereas I think Margot wasn't. It's not that he wasn't Buxton insurance, although they very quickly decided they didn't really love playing him in center field, which is a whole other issue.
Right.
But he was brought in to really fill that role of platooning against, with, Wallner, Larnach, Kepler, Kirilloff, and I don't know.
They might have liked to have had an extra $3 million at the disposal to maybe get a little bit better bat. That's in the corners.
That's also fair. I got about 10 minutes till I got to get over there. So let's.
Okay.
Two other things. Oh, one, if you were tuning in and you had read my report on The Athletic a couple days ago about the Twins radio situation.
Oh, yeah.
We talked probably for about a half hour about that on Wednesday's show. Wednesday's Patreons.
Yep.
Patreon, patreon.com/Gleeman. You should be signing up for it now. I mean, go through the stretch run. It'll probably cost you like $12 or something like that to go through the end of the season. The gist of it is the Twins, in addition to being television free agents at the end of the season, are also, I've confirmed, radio free agents at the end of the season. Their contract with WCCO Radio is up. They've been with CCO 2 different stints, totaling 53 of the 64 seasons of Minnesota Twins baseball, including the last 7 years. What I tried to kind of get my hands around, talking to people with the Twins, talking to people at the radio stations involved, talking to people just in the radio industry, is what are their real options here? And they definitely...
What decisions are they wrestling
And
with?
what are the factors that are kind of, as they look ahead? Because it's not just a one-year decision. It's not... I mean, you probably could re-up for a year and revisit this, but you're looking to sign a 5-10-year deal with whoever you go to. Returning to WCCO is absolutely on the table. It might even be the leader in the clubhouse here.
Sure.
But unlike the TV situation where there are really no local suitors, at least that I know of, KFAN and Score North, KFAN, which is an iHeartRadio station, and Score North, which is a Hubbard broadcasting station, have joined the talks or have entered the mix with the Twins. And I've confirmed through multiple sources that they're in talks with all 3 of those stations. And I wrote about it, and we went into a lot of depth, I think, on the Patreon side, not so much about what I know about the ongoing negotiations, but just how we view like the future of radio here. Like, what are the factors that they're kind of trying to figure out to make a best choice, not just for 2025, but maybe 2035.
Right.
Honestly, what's the radio industry going to look like if it exists in its current form at all, really, which I'm kind of skeptical about. But and who offers you the best chance going forward, like to grow the audience and to reach a younger demographic and to incorporate more non-traditional content avenues like YouTube, podcast, streaming, as opposed to just tuning into AM radio or whatever.
And you're trying to do all of this stuff in an industry that itself is being completely upturned by, various factors that are, you've got several different companies going through bankruptcy or, trying to retool what they are.
2 of those 3 companies, of those 3 radio stations, the parent companies, 2 of those 3 are going through bankruptcy, I believe. And the one that's not, as far as I know, going through bankruptcy, which is Hubbard, is the smallest of the 3 locally.
I'm not sure iHeart still is. Maybe they still are. I know they were.
Okay.
But,
whatever. And so, if this is an intriguing topic to you, which it's sure as hell an intriguing topic to you and I would say the many, many people I've been talking to about this stuff over the last few weeks to try to put this article together, we got into the weeds with it and really kind of went in depth. Some opinions, some reporting, some kind of behind the scenes facts and stuff like that, ratings and what these teams are, or what the Twins are getting offered.
I bet you we revisit next time in our next mailbag too, probably next week. Because there are enough different questions that kind of came up about what's the big difference between AM and FM. And I mean, there are factors within the industry that make those questions important.
So sign up for the Patreon. You can actually listen to that episode for free if you become a Patreon subscriber because our entire archive of all previous episodes is completely free to anyone who subscribes.
Or if you click over there, you can, at patreon.com/Gleeman, you can usually listen to like the first 5 minutes for absolutely free. Like, we just put that out there as sort of a taste. And I think a lot of that discussion started in the first 5 minutes. So.
I'm trying to, I don't know.
We often kill the first 5 minutes with BS, but I think
John will talk about the crisp air outside, and I'll complain about something.
That's right, yeah.
And then we get to the baseball. Maybe actually telling people to listen to the first 5 minutes of the show might not be our best selling point. We should make it the last 5 minutes. What is I don't know that there's a good 5 minutes.
Right.
Listen to a different show and then come and subscribe to our show. And then the last thing I want to talk about briefly here is that Baseball America and ESPN both came out with their mid-season prospect lists.
Yep.
And then as an offshoot of that, their farm system rankings. So they come out with a new top 100 list for individual prospects, but then they also come up with ranking each team's prospect groups or farm systems. Yeah. And I put out my top 20 Twins midseason list like maybe 3 weeks ago, right after the draft, mid-July, I guess, late July. And we kind of went through it.
Twins Daily does this on a monthly basis.
And we went through it on the show, kind of read through the changes, the rising guys, the falling guys. And one of the things I talked about at the time was my perception, not just how I view the Twins, but talking to people around the league about farm systems, is that they were one of the most improved teams from this point last year to this point this year.
Things have been trending in a positive light in a lot of ways.
In part because they've had some high draft picks, including Walker Jenkins last year, but in part because they've had guys like Zebby Matthews and Luke Keeschel have kind of a breakout, and then in part because Jenkins, Brooks Lee, Emmanuel Rodriguez, and David Festa, who are their top four in my mind, have all had good seasons, although there's been some injuries involved in a couple of those guys. Sure enough, I can say that as someone who covers the Twins. I can tell you relative to other Twins if they're improved or not, and I can tell you how this group ranks relative to other Twins groups, but I can't tell you how it ranks relative to
the Tampa Rays.
Yeah, whoever.
Exactly right.
And so I read through Baseball America's farm system rankings and ESPN's farm system rankings, and they agree with me. Baseball America ranks the Twins third
overall,
where number one is the Orioles, who have one of the best young hitting groups I've ever seen. And then number two is the Rays, who just always have a top farm system because they're constantly trading veterans for prospects. And then the Twins are number three. ESPN had them number four. And not only were they highly ranked, I mean, you get into the top five, that's really good for a farm system. But reading through their write-ups on both of these, where they kind of summarize the Twin system, it was largely what I had said, which is their top prospects coming into the season have increased their stock despite some injuries. But from a performance standpoint, they've been really good. They're top four guys. And they've had two or three guys jump into from kind of, this is an intriguing prospect to, this is a top 100 guy. Yeah. And the other thing, their top six prospects, in my mind at least, are all at AA or above.
Right.
And
we're going to see these guys.
I think,
especially if you live in St. Paul, you're going to see these guys.
If you live in St. Paul.
Right.
Or I guess go to Wichita if you want to see Luke Keeschel, although he might end up in St. Paul here too. I think if Emmanuel Rodriguez had been healthier, and he's been out for quite a while now with a wrist and hand injury, he probably would have found his way to AAA here, if not now, pretty soon, but he's been hurt for half the season. And then Luke Keeschel, too, got promoted from high A to double A. Yeah. He's been really good at double A. It's not impossible that he would have gotten to triple A, too. So not only is it a high-end system in terms of top 30, top 50, top 100 guys, the majority of those guys are very close to the majors, or in Brooks Lee and Festa's case, in the majors. Now, the catch-22 of prospect lists is that Brooks Lee is about 2 weeks away from no longer qualifying for a prospect status.
That is correct, yes.
And David Festa is also probably, another handful of starts from doing the same. Yeah. When you reach 130 at-bats in the majors or 50 innings in the majors, you're no longer eligible for Rookie of the Year the following season, and that's what prospect status is largely determined by, is the Rookie of the Year eligibility. And so it's a weird bit of the success of those players is then going to take a chunk out of your farm system rankings. Right. So when Lee and Festa, presumably by the end of the season, are no longer considered prospects, that is going to drop the Twins in the prospect rankings, but it won't change sort of the overall young talent level, which is something we talk a lot about. Right. But anyway.
Well, I mean, and that does not include, that doesn't include people like Edouard Julien, who right now is not, I don't think he qualifies as a prospect. He definitely doesn't qualify as a prospect, but is also sitting down there in the same way, ready to jump up the way Miranda did or Larnach did this year.
It doesn't count Simeon Woods Richardson.
Right, yeah, that's right. Who's already
has graduated out of prospect status.
That's right.
But is now thriving in the majors.
Right.
And there's some other players who kind of fit that description too. But, I mean, Varlin we talk about is not technically a prospect, but is certainly still... Right. A prospect, I would argue.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's some other guys who fit that mold too. So yeah, I don't know. It's good to not be nuts. Because, it's easy to have Twins-only blinders on. It's easy for fans to do it. It's also easy for us to do it. And so when I'm pretty sure about something and then it gets confirmed by national outlets, I think, okay, I'm at least approaching this correctly.
It's also easy to just BS about the future of a particular franchise. You know, if any franchise that is struggling or going through a tough time or facing payroll cuts, right, can absolutely just say, but look at our farm system. Look how good, look how many opportunities there's. And that does, it's hard to compare farm systems across 30 different organizations. You have to have an organization that's paying attention to that sort of thing.
But they've done a good job with their recent high picks. Their two highest picks recently were Walker Jenkins and Brooks Lee.
Yes.
They've also done a good job with some of these. We've talked a lot about this. Their MO for pitching has been kind of mid-round picks on right-handed starting pitchers from non-elite college programs. Right. Bailey Ober, David Festa, Zebby Matthews, this guy Andrew Morris coming up, Louis Varlin from Concordia, obviously. Right. They've had a lot of success with that, and they've hit on some international guys like Emmanuel Rodriguez, although they largely haven't had that much success there. But they've also hit on some second-round picks like Luke Keisha, who a year ago was at Arizona State and now is on the verge of being at AAA and has moved into top 100 prospect status himself. So good to see for the farm system. And like you said, if payroll is going to continue to be an issue for them, and unfortunately
every indication
think
that
it
is
is,
the case, right?
The farm system, the fewer dollars you have to spend, the more it's it's a direct relationship to the importance of the farm system.
Well, and I'll add this: if injuries are going to continue to be an issue with them, which there's every indication that is going to be continuing, the depth that sort of thing provides has been absolutely critical for them to be able to keep their head above water.
Just the fact that Brooks Lee came up instead of some washed up, scrap heap shortstop or something like that. And for good or bad, this pitching pipeline that everybody has been obsessed about, if Joe Ryan is out here for a while, 3/5 of this rotation are going to essentially be filled by rookies. And the rookies are going to be Simeon Woods Richardson, who was acquired when he was 20 in a trade. Right. Louis Varlin, who was a late-round draft pick from Concordia University. Right. And David Festa, who I believe was an 8th-round pick from Seton Hall 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever it was. And then the guy waiting in the wings is Zebby Matthews, who was like a 10th round pick from Coastal Carolina or Western Carolina.
Well, that's one of the pillars of the rotation.
Carolina listeners. I don't want to piss them off. You know who you are. That I named the wrong school.
You also had the pillar of the rotation is Bailey Ober right now, who's a College of Charleston.
From my which is in Carolina also, right?
That's right. 2017.
Right. Who was a
12th round.
Yes. And so we're going to find out a lot, unfortunately, because of the injuries to Paddock and Joe Ryan, about what the state of their young pitching is, because it's going to sink or swim
a little sooner than we want.
Okay. Everybody try to breathe. Buckle up, for sure. Buckle up.
Get excited.
Go out into that crisp air that John is obsessed about.
Such good sleeping weather.
Good sleeping weather. Okay. See, I like to sleep when it rains. That's I like sleeping. I
like that cold air going through the
why
windows.
keep a fan on me 100% of the time? I guess I simulate that. So try not to drive yourself insane with every inning during this 7-game homestand. But man, this is like you said. This is what you you play for. This is what you watch for.
Exactly. Also try to support our sponsors who brought this episode free to you. That includes Dan Hodgen, Game Time, RotoWire, Raycon, Bricksworth Beer Company right near Target Field, and also our presenting sponsor. Special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Black Stack Brewing. Check out their Where to Buy page on their website to find out where you can buy their beer and THC products near you. We will be back on Monday. To recap the Twins' biggest series of the year thus far, and look forward to potentially their second biggest series of
Monday
the year.
Is going to be
thus far.
One way or the other, it's going to be interesting.
You can check it all out for like $1.
Yes, Patreon, Patreon,
right.
Patreon.com/Gleeman. Join us not only for Monday's show, but for the stretch run in the playoffs.
You will be excited to spend that $1, I guarantee it.
Yeah, it's going to a good cause. Us. What's a better charity than us? You've heard us. We are a charity. All right, we'll talk to you then.
Bye.
Gleeman.